Most people never notice it. They go about their lives, unaware of the weight in the air. But for the Lutz family, that silence was the first thing they felt when they stepped into the house on 112 Ocean Avenue in December 1975. George Lutz held the keys in his hand, smiling faintly as he glanced at his new wife, Kathy. Her children, Daniel, Christopher, and little Melissa, ran ahead up the snow-covered front steps, their voices bright against the gray sky. The house loomed above them, a Dutch colonial with twin quarter-moon windows like unblinking eyes staring down. It had cost far less than it should have, even with its size, even with the boathouse, the dock, the quiet neighborhood. It had been a bargain. There was, of course, the reason. Only 13 months earlier, the DeFeo murders had made the headlines. 6 members of the same family shot in their beds by the eldest son, Ronald. The details were whispered in the town for months afterward, that they'd all been killed in the early morning hours, one by one, while the others slept, that none of them had moved, or screamed, or tried to run, that Ronald claimed he'd heard a voice telling him to do it. But George wasn't a superstitious man. Kathy had her faith, but she believed in starting fresh. And so, they moved in on a cold December day, unaware that their fresh start would become a fight to survive. The first days felt normal enough. The children explored their new rooms. Melissa decorated hers with dolls. Daniel asked if he could use the basement for his drum set. George began stocking the boathouse with tools. But little things happened. Almost immediately, when George lit the fireplace the first night, he noticed the heat didn't seem to spread. The air in the house stayed cool, a damp chill that clung to the skin no matter how many logs he burned. Kathy mentioned that certain rooms felt colder than others, especially the sewing room upstairs. At first, they explained it away. Drafty windows, an old furnace. But then Kathy started waking at exactly 3:15 a.m. every night. No sound woke her. She simply opened her eyes and saw the clock. It happened 3 nights in a row before she mentioned it to George. He laughed it off. But when he began waking at the same time, he stopped laughing. On the 5th night, George heard a noise, a faint metallic squeal coming from outside. He got up, pulling on his coat, and followed the sound to the boathouse. The door was swinging gently on its hinges. He checked the lock. It was still in place. The air smelled faintly of stagnant water. From somewhere behind him, just past the dock, he thought he heard a splash. When he looked, there was only rippling water, moving slowly under the moonlight. The days blurred together. George began chopping wood obsessively, stacking it in neat piles that he never burned. His beard grew thicker, his eyes hollow. Kathy noticed his temper was shortening, his voice more distant. The children began talking about someone named Jody. Melissa said Jody was her friend, a big pig who could change shapes and play hide-and-seek. One afternoon, Kathy saw her daughter staring out the bedroom window. "What are you looking at?" she asked. Melissa pointed. "Jody's out there." Kathy followed her gaze and froze. 2 glowing red eyes stared back from the darkness, level with the second-story window. When she blinked, they were gone. Then came the flies. It was mid-December. Snow outside, frost on the ground. But in the sewing room, the windows were covered in flies. Hundreds of them. They buzzed in unison, crawling over the glass in each other, their wings shimmering in the dim light. George and Kathy killed them with rolled-up magazines, smashing them against the panes until black smears dotted the wood. The next day, they were back. Kathy's nightmares began to intensify. She dreamed of a young woman screaming, of the deafening crack of a rifle. She saw children lying still in their beds, blankets pulled to their chins. Sometimes she woke to find herself standing at the foot of her own children's beds, unsure how she'd gotten there. George began hearing footsteps upstairs when no one was there. Sometimes it was a slow, deliberate tread. Other times it was heavy, urgent, as if someone were running from room to room. The family priest, Father Mancuso, agreed to bless the house, but when he entered the sewing room, he froze. His breath came in short bursts, his face pale, the voice deep, male, furious, growled directly into his ear. "Get out." He left abruptly, telling the Lutzes only that they should leave. The house grew darker. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of rot. George lost track of days, sleeping in fits, waking in confusion. He found himself standing at the edge of the dock one night, shivering, unsure how long he'd been there. Kathy became withdrawn. The children began fighting, their laughter gone. The cold spread through the house until it was impossible to get warm. And Then, things turned violent. One night, George awoke to the sound of Kathy screaming. He turned and froze. She was floating above the bed, her back arched, her hair hanging down. When she dropped, the mattress shook violently. Her eyes were wide, her skin slick with sweat. She whispered something he couldn't understand. Another night, George woke to find himself pinned in place. Something heavy pressed against his chest, invisible but suffocating. From the doorway, a shadow leaned forward, massive, hunched, with two curved horns that scraped the ceiling. The final night came suddenly, January 14th, 1976. The temperature in the house had dropped to near freezing. The wind outside howled, but inside, the sound was different, like a low, steady hum, vibrating through the walls. The children woke screaming, doors slammed upstairs. From the basement came the sound of something pounding against the walls. From the inside, George ran to the stairs and stopped. Black sludge was oozing from the ceiling, dripping down the walls in thick, foul-smelling rivulets. Kathy shouted for him to get the kids. They ran from room to room, grabbing coats, shoes, anything they could. But in the chaos, George glanced into the sewing room. For a split second, he saw them, 6 figures lying on the floor, bullet holes in their heads, eyes open and glassy, and standing over them was the shadow with the horns. They left that night and never returned. The house was sold again, renovated, repainted. Some say nothing unusual has happened there since. Others claim the darkness never really left. What the Lutz family endured over those 28 days remains one of the most famous and most debated survival stories in modern paranormal history. Was it a hoax, a shared madness, or did they survive an encounter with something inhuman? No one can say for certain, but George and Kathy believed it with every fiber of their being, and in that belief, they found the strength to run. If you found yourself here, listening to the weight of what happened in that house, ask yourself, would you have stayed the night, or would you have left everything behind, just to live? Like, share, and comment if you've ever wondered what's waiting in the dark, and if you dare, join me for the next chapter of true horror survival.